day, YouTubers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from all around the world. We finally made it past the rubbing stakes and the planking, and we're on to something new. Got all our pieces ready there, some planking to go on them. Bunch of little pieces. Let me turn the lights on. And all morning on these rubbing stakes on this side. Port side is done. Well, we got to do the trim work. We got the other side cleaned up and the keel line cleaned up. And we got to do the trim work on the new ones that we installed this morning. So that takes us down to where it shows in the plans. 4 boards below. I'll trim these off too. So gotta glue these together. And then it wants us to put planking on the outside of it. These little 2mm wide by 1/2 millimeter thick strips. And then gluing these together after we sand them up. And put planking on them too. Covering the side and all with that 2mm board, and then we're gluing these up, sanding them, and then putting planking on there perpendicular, and then stain, and then hang some hardware. It's probably some brass hardware or something. Then we get to do some shaping and some decorations and all that. But we got to get one step at a time. Work on these first. Get them glued up and then start planking them. This should go fairly quick, other than all the little pieces you got to handle. A little bit of sanding to do before I start gluing them up to get rid of them laser cut lines. So we did make some progress this week. We're on to something different. So I'm looking at my plans here, and I notice it says to put HNG on these parts after we put little planking on, and we've got to paint the parts. It looks like wood, but it's not. It's brass, so we got to paint them black. But before I went to cut them out of the brass sheet here, there's a whole bunch of little hinges there. I'm going to cut 4 of them out. I noticed that the back. It's going on the back of that little half box that we made. But there's a seam on that half box where it joins together. That seam right there. But I noticed when you go to see the hinges, I forgot to put a piece of planking over that spot where the hinge mounts. So it looks solid there. You don't see the joint that was up here when you first glue it together. So I got to put some more planking on the back of this thing. I've already got these planked up and stained. But before I can put the hinges on the back here, I got to add 2 more planks on each side. Good grief. At least I saw it before I glued them on there. Let's see if the bucks are out this morning. Oh yeah. And the ducks. One of them snoozing in the shade. I got me a chair out here so I can gaze at them while they forage. Give them a little snack this morning of it's got some cracked corn and mealy worms and a bunch of goodies in there, and then that's for the ducks. Get a little snack every now and then. They really enjoy that. Last night when I went to put the chickens up, it was dark out. Oh, good morning. These 2 black ones wouldn't go in. I had to come out here into the coop and pick them up because I couldn't get them to walk in by themselves. The black ones will let you touch them, but the other 3 won't, or 4. They're interested in the camera. And one of them is a rooster. The one with the biggest crown there is a rooster. He's starting to call in the morning. Sort of a half call now because he's still young. Goofy birds. I don't know how long before we get eggs, so there's the beans popping up. Look at that. And the onions. These beans over here are starting to climb the trellis. Remember, I planted squash in there with the cucumbers, and all the squash are coming up. I'm gonna have a jungle in there. I turn the light off when I'm putting the camera up to the screens because there's too much reflection from the lights. As you can see now with the lights on, it's sort of hard to see. So let me cut 2, glue them on, and then get these hinges out of here for them. And I gotta paint them black And then I can put them on. And I'm thinking of what kind of glue to use in that metal. The metal to the wood. I might try this stuff here. See how that works. Okay, so now we're doing another 0.5 millimeter by 5 millimeter planking in the front. So right where the bowsprit comes out on the bow deck, behind that we're installing those little doorways we made. And we did some shaping on a piece, get a profile, something like that one there. And staining. So once I got down to here, I saw where those things go. Got the hinges painted black and glued them on. And then I went ahead and glued the hatches on with that piece of trim that we shaped. So now we got to build this ladder on both sides. And it came out pretty good. We got to wait for everything to dry, and then we can trim off the edges, because we got the edges overhanging here in the front. And see little pieces of brass that we painted black, glued them on, and then we glued the housing for the doorway on to the stained 0.5 millimeter planks. It's the same as the rubbing stakes that we put on the side there. So we'll have to trim off this excess hair after everything dries. But that's our first little bits of detail work that we got done this week. So for the ladder, it calls for a WS3 code, and it's 4 millimeters away from the edge of the door. And they're 9 millimeters long, and they're 5 millimeters apart. So a WS3, we have to go to the parts list, and there's WS2, WS3. So that's a 2x2 board that we're gonna stain after we cut a whole bunch of them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 13 times 2, and stain it and glue them on there. So we might as well, I'm thinking about how I'm going to cut them. I'm going to use this. I could use this little miter box, but it's hard to get a good measurement when you cut. And then of course I do use this a lot to cut. But here again, I'd have to tape on a stop or something for each cut. That might be the way to go. Being a 2x2 board, it had me shape a board along with, when I was shaping this one, it had me shape a board to at the same time in the instructions, but I haven't seen what this is for yet, which means it's probably the steps, and they want the concave part facing down or something. I don't know. I'll have to look at that more closely. But that was a 2x2 block of stock, 200 millimeters long, that I shaped to the one they wanted. But we don't want raw ends, so we got to have the ends and the piece stained. I would assume we try to do all that before we glue them on. So that's going to be a little trial and error trying to get that to where I don't think I should stain them afterwards, because then I'm going to show where I touched the background. So I'm going to have to stain them ahead of time after they're cut. Pain in the butt. But we'll get there. That's going to take a little time to get all those pieces shaped, stained, make them all exactly the same length. Good luck on that. And then these two decorations go on. They're like a vented hatch cover. I haven't made them up yet. I got to get those out of the parts, make those up, but supposedly that will finish. Oh no, there's some more hatches there. Got a hatch there, and over on this side we'll have to make them up. Good grief almighty. This front end, oh, we got 4 more hinges. These hinges are going to be a pain in the butt. As I cut them out of here, I might as well just leave them in here and paint a bunch of these black. They're really hard to get out without damaging them. I was using an X-Acto knife to cut them off. And after I got them cut off, I used a pair of needle nose pliers, because there was still that little ear hanging out on the side of them. And I put the Dremel with the cutoff wheel bit in there, clamped it in the vise, so I had a stationary cutting surface to lay that with the needle nose up against there and knock off that little burr that's sticking out from when you remove them from the sheet. Each one of them is a little bit of a process to get them cleaned up, ready to. And if I try to paint them ahead of time over here and then cut them out, I'm gonna have that raw edge that's gonna show. So I'm gonna have to do it the hard way, I guess. Thanks for watching.